Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome you back. And we have Dr. David in the house back again. Dr. David, it's always fun having you. How are you?
Pleasure to be with you, Ali, as always.
So I actually saw your video on your YouTube channel, Geopolitical Trends. It was titled "India Caved into U.S. Pressure," and you had a guest. Just walk us through that video. What did you guys talk about, and what did you guys conclude?
Well, certainly, Ali. That was a video that I had. I had a conversation with the giant Bahandari. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a financial investor, so someone who understands these issues of commodities and so forth. But he's also have a great depth or understanding about India because he's of Indian descent to begin with. And what we talked about is the idea that the media in India is coming. It's so delusioned by stating that we stand to America for this and that because of the tariffs issues. When in reality, India had to cave in for not processing oil in the Indian refinery, that oil that's coming from Russia. And the reason for that, because it was the US and India that signed the deal. As a matter of fact, India was bragging about it big time for the fact that, this has to do with the idea of the US agreeing with India or India buying liquefied. Yeah, they were buying liquefied oil from the United States at a far higher price than what they getting from the Russians. The Russians' oil were sold to them at a discount for about $8 to $12 a barrel. This is where the discrepancies are. My guest suggested at that time when we talked, Giant Bandar suggested that that might be a smart move on part of India, which I see the argument for that. But the idea of, because what India did, some sort of, they called it a historic deal with the US, but in the facts remain is that India was pressured by the United States not to get much oil anymore from Russia. Yeah, they might still get some, but not in the same quantity. Because if you think about last year, for example, India was getting about 1.8 million barrel a day coming out from Russia at a discounted price. And the idea now of the US selling the LPG, liquefied petroleums, to India, which will be far higher prices. The question becomes, which my guest and I yesterday discussed, is that can India sustain this? Because India doesn't have the means, the financial means to sustain this for a long time. It was another good point that we need to consider into all this is it has to do with the pricing. And that's why India did this, is took it back at Qatar, because that's where one of the gas, usually what I used to come from Qatar. The bottom line to all this, Ali, is I am convinced that India was pressured by the US to forego the Russian oil in for purchasing the American energy or energy from the US.
How is the Indian American relationship looking like these days? I mean, has is it growing mellow now? Is it still the same? What's going on?
Well, it's frozen, if I may use the term. It's because the idea of Modi was that romance between Modi and Trump is over. You know, it's because it was never there to begin with. Here is what a lot of people do not understand: the reason why in first term of Trump, why he gets closer to Modi is because you have a large Indian population living here in the US. And Trump was after the votes for that. Once he got that, it's over for that. So this is why now to Trump, Modi doesn't matter. But not just to Trump. You look at the global the global landscape. Does India matter? I mean, literally, just think about it. Some will say yes, others will say no. For me, as a geopolitical analyst, I see that India is holding the end of the stick regarding foreign policy on all directions. And of course, the latest defeat by the Pakistanis just added more, sort of put the nail on the coffin. This is why I feel India is isolated. It just because it always sets on both sides of the fence, and anytime you deal with this in international affairs, other countries will kind of be cautious about dealing with you. And that's the I see it now with the Chinese. We all remember when a few months ago, oh, Modi's gonna meet with President Xi Jinping on a private summits and all that stuff, which was nothing but hypes.
Mm.
And I remember arguing back then that if you want to see the honesty, or if you want to assess rather the honesty of the Indian government, let them talk about the border issue with China. They never did. They never did because it was never an intention on part of India to move in an honest way with the Chinese. Same arguments apply to other countries. This is why you're seeing more countries are keeping India at an arm's length, but they're still dealing with it at a certain level.
So it looks like India, the neighborhood around India isn't happy from
Yeah.
India. So you've got Sheikh Hasina Wajid, who just got a death sentence, and she's in India right now. And this is gonna.
Yeah.
How do you look at this? Is India gonna hand Hasina back to Bangladesh? If they don't, what will happen between the relationship of India and Bangladesh, which is already deteriorating? But how is this gonna
Yeah.
unfold further?
Well, it is unlikely that India will turn over Sheikh Hasina to Bangladeshi authorities. So, and to me, it was like, okay, I'm not pointing fingers at India here. Other countries do it as well. You think, for example, and I give your audience two examples. One
Please.
is current, and one is an old one. The current one has to do with the former Syrian president. Where is he right now? He is in Moscow. Will Moscow go and turn him over to the new government in Syria? No. The same argument I could make about the late dictator of Tunisia, Zine Abidine,
Mm,
who sought refuge in Saudi Arabia. It's no
okay.
different than what's his name in Africa, Idi Amin.
Hmm.
Where was he? He was in Saudi Arabia. So what I'm saying is this is nothing new. But for India is using this as a leverage because India is influencing three neighboring countries that does not want to see them prosper economically. We're talking about Nepal, and I was there. I was in Kathmandu. I talked to people inside the government. And what I heard was very disturbing as far as what India was doing back then in Nepal. So you have Nepal, you have Bangladesh, and you have Bhutan. Those three countries. So in the case of Bangladesh is very specific. Why? Because you have Pakistan now it's getting closer with Bangladesh. India doesn't want to see that. So that's why they're gonna be always influencing at least Bangladesh and Bhutan. Nepal seems to be taking the sort of it's moving on a different direction altogether.
So there was a terror attack in Delhi metro station right across the Lal Killa, the Red Fort, and for the very first time, Dr. David, India went out and took Turkey's name and Bangladesh's name, and this was for the very first time two other countries other than Pakistan. We were like shocked that wow, okay, they took
Yeah.
Turkey. We're not alone in this one. Okay, this is the first time. So, what is actually going on
Yeah.
between India and Turkey? Because things are on a downward spiral between these two.
Well, that's an interesting aspect given the developments that existed right now. And the reason why you have to think of it in these terms, especially when considering Turkey not allowing its airspace to be used for allowing the transfer of this particular deliveries to India. So, just to give a background for people to have an understanding, Turkey is not allowing, or has not allowed, or rather, the delivery of the final Apache helicopters to India. And this has to do, of course, with the deteriorating diplomatic relations between Ankara and New Delhi. And why is this? It's because India accusing Turkey of support of Pakistan. Well, of course, Turkey is supporting Pakistan. It's always had a good relationship. But also, Turkey criticized India regarding India's policy in Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
Why? Because the majority of Muslims that exist in Kashmir. As a matter of fact, Ali, yesterday when I had my conversation with my guest, I asked this specific question. In our lifetime, will we ever see an independent Kashmir? Independent from both Pakistan and India. And my guest, and I could see his argument, he said most likely that the Kashmiris will want to move with the Pakistanis more so than it is with the Indian. So, and
Okay.
this is one of the idea of why India is upset with Turkey is because the criticism regarding Jammu and Kashmir. So when Turkey denied the airspace, sort of it became, in my opinion, as a diplomatic message to India. And diplomatic message, what does it mean? It's basically signaling Turkey's discontent over India's action. And at the same time, this gives also a signal to Pakistan regarding the strengthening of the relationship between Turkey and Pakistan. So this is where you're going to have to see it for your audience to have a better understanding about this.
So, did Turkey say anything about this? Why they stopped didn't give the airspace? What was the reason they gave to India, or are they just quiet on this?
Oh, they're very quiet about it. But at the same time, there is a major impact of blocking this delivery on India's military preparedness, rather, because this incident, the prevention of allowing a cargo with the Apache to be delivered to India because it has to cross Turkish airspace. This incident itself highlights the vulnerabilities now in India's defense logistics and procurement strategy, which basically all of it relies on international partnership. And of course, one of the key aspects to this is the transit agreements. And of course, the incident with Pakistan regarding the military exchange that they had, the scrimmage they had, exposes the weaknesses of India on the field specifically. This is why this action by Turkey is a very, very symbolic message. Because to me, it's as a geopolitical analyst, I can read it any other way. The move is interpreted as a political message from Turkey because Turkey is geographically well positioned, because it can impose a cost on India for whatever reason. Among it will be for actions that Turkey sees sort of could create an edge for India over Pakistan. This is one thing India will be trying to do, is to create a wedge between Turkey and Pakistan. And I don't see them succeeding in doing so. That is the way I see it.
I don't know what strategy this is. I mean, blaming Pakistan first and then involving other countries into this. This would widen their mess. I mean, they're going on the table with other messes. This is bonkers. I mean, this is so wrong.
Yeah, well, that's part of what international relations are all about. Because you're going to have to think in terms of this move by the Turks sort of underscores now the fragile and the increasingly volatile states of international relations across not only in the Middle East, but across the Indo-Pacific and West Asia theaters. Because that's how you have to read it. This has a far-reaching consequences for India, more so than any other. But also it strengthened the position of Pakistan, because Pakistan is moving in a different direction altogether, especially now when you consider why, what's his name, Field Marshal
Asim
Amir,
Munir.
Asim Munir, I'm sorry, Asim Munir, why he made a statement way back a few months ago regarding the eastern flank. That means he was already hinting at expanding the relationship with Bangladesh for a strategic reason. And of course, given now what the change into the article of the Constitution of Pakistan,
Yeah.
number 23 or number 27, one of
240
them,
something. Yeah.
which gives, yeah, it gives him now more say into what is going on with the political decisions for the country.
Yep, that's true. Okay, so I don't know. I know it's early in the morning where you are, but
Yeah.
around 3 to 5 hours ago in the Dubai flying, there was a Dubai flying festival
Mm-hmm.
going on. Tejas, Indian made Teja, went down during a aerial show. I don't know if you saw it or not. So these are Indian made.
Actually, I did not. Yeah.
But you know about Tejas, right? Indian made, totally Indian made planes,
Yeah.
jets. So
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Yeah.
this brings
Yeah.
this has brought Indian Air Force back into conversations again. What is going on? 2025 would be a very very tough year for the Indian Air Force.
Well, it's of course this is why the French, for example, refuse now to sell more Rafales to Indians because there is a request by India to acquire more Rafales, and French said no. Why not? Because it's bad news for France. Also, when you have Pakistani's missile shutting down the Rafales, because Rafale fighter jets have no sort of stand no chance against, let's say, the J-10, the Chinese J-10, or the Su-35, the Russians, or the MiG-29, or the F-35, the US, or the F-18s, and so forth. So the Indians are realizing it's bad, very bad. And when you are, as a country that is considering sort of purchasing hardware, military hardware, weapons, that is, India will be at the bottom of the list. That's the last thing you will consider. Is why? Because the quality and the efficiency of the weapons. And when you have the what happened between India and Pakistan exemplified the India's inability to defend itself when they had 6 or 7 fighter jets being shut down and lying about it. Oh, there was nothing. No, there was. And I had confirmation of all this. So, and that's exactly why. But as far as the incident detail about Dubai, I am not aware of it yet. I'm going to do some read up on it later on.